everybody and welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another Spooky Sunday video. So you might notice that the background's a little bit empty, and that is because I move out of here as I'm filming this video in a month. So I'm trying to pre-film loads of scary videos so that while I'm moving you still get videos, because I don't know if I'm gonna have a space to film for a few weeks. So I'm gonna pre-film loads now so that you don't miss any videos. But it looks so plain and so weird. Like all my cushions have gone. These ones came with the apartment. All my blankets. The only thing left on my desk is the salt lamp and a few bits and bobs, but it's crazy. Very sad. Moving out of my first home. This was my first home moving out of my family's house, so it is a sad time. But yeah, this is why it's gonna be a little bit plain in the background for a few of the videos. Anyway, into today's video, we are going to be looking at some mysteries that were solved by the journalists that were covering the story. I found this topic really interesting. As always, I will have the link to the source in the description in case you want to go and check out the source. But without further ado, let's get on into today's video, and I hope you all like it. I feel like my hair is giving me berries and cream at the front. Like if it goes back, I'm feeling berries and creamy. I need to put it forward. I don't know if that's any better. Okay, there's a descriptor, so I'm going to read the descriptor. It's a little bit long, so I'll try and read it fast, and then we'll move into the first one on this list. Every writer is looking for the one story that can make their career. While investigating even the smallest mystery, they can dig up and devour facts that can hopefully lead to a greater understanding of the calamitous and horrifying events. Don't know if that's how it's said, calamitous? Anyway, some stories take years to get to the bottom of, and a few of the journalists who solve crimes on this list spent most of their lives following one story in order to find a somewhat satisfying conclusion. Most of the stories that are covered here don't have a happy ending, but with the help of the journalists involved, the families of the people involved were able to find a closure in a horrible situation. This is an understatement, but crime investigation isn't easy. No one wants to share information. You never know who's telling the truth, and it takes forever to get anything done. People can spend their entire lives trying to solve one case, and more often than not, they end up with unsatisfying results and 30 years worth of court transcripts in their garage. However, when a journalist is able to find a definitive answer to a mystery, local, worldwide or otherwise, it's inspiring to all other writers out there who are looking at their big break. Put on your Deerstalker, get out the Smith Corona and get ready to go down a rabbit hole of unsolved mysteries that were unravelled by journalists following the story. So that's the little descriptor or intro, I don't know which you would call it, but it's interesting. I'm excited to get into these stories. I haven't read all of them, so it's going to be new for me and new for you, and it's really exciting. So let's get into the first story. This one is called The Grim Sleeper, and it says, in 2006, Christine Pellesk began trying to find consistencies between 38 suspicious deaths of women dating back to the 1980s. All of the victims were black, and most of them had been dumped in alleys or dumpsters. Christine and her editor at LA Weekly quickly began to connect the dots and realised that most of the murders on her list were likely perpetrated by the same criminal, the Grim Sleeper. Despite taking 14 years off between his crimes, the Sleeper's MO was still eerily similar. After interviewing hundreds of women across South Los Angeles, Pellesk was able to help the LAPD apprehend Lonnie David Franklin Jr., who was charged with 10 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. He was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to death. Well, it's interesting, but I want to know how they did it. I want the story to go deeper. We sort of know that they were looking into things for years and this and that, but we don't know how, and I want to know the juice of it. I want the meaty information. How did they find out that he was the murderer? Like, I know she's interviewing women and I know that she was connecting dots and stuff, but I want to know the whole story. Like, that's the only thing that I'm missing from this one, is all the little details. But maybe if I read the case more, it would have more details. This is obviously just a quick summary list, but that's the only thing I was missing from that story. Let's move on to the next one. The disappearance of Duncan McPherson. Duncan McPherson was a Canadian semi-pro hockey player who, in 1989, stopped off for some extreme sports in Vienna before heading to his intended destination in Scotland. McPherson vanished from the ski resort in Vienna, and although his death was surrounded by mysterious circumstances, it was never investigated. 14 years later, in July 2003, his body was found encased in a melting glacier. The Australian government concluded that he had died during a snowboarding accident, but his family didn't believe that to be true. There wasn't even an autopsy performed. John Leake, an author and journalist, worked with the CBC's Fifth Estate to give some answers to the McPherson's family. And what he found was truly horrifying. McPherson had broken his leg snowboarding and fell unconscious on the side of a ski slope. A tractor that was grooming the snow ran McPherson over, killing him. It was almost certainly an accident. But rather than reporting the incident, the tractor driver did something unconscionable. I think that's how you say it. He shoved Duncan's body into a crack in a glacier and hoped no one would ever find out what he did. What the heck? Literally, he should have just reported it. It was obviously an accident. Like, he's broken his leg, the guy didn't see him and he's run over him. That's an accident. But in the law, when you start to conceal it and you start to get rid of a body and stuff, then it becomes an issue and you do actually get in trouble because you obviously know what you've done is wrong because you're trying to hide the body, if that makes sense. So he should have just said it was an accident. I want to know what happened to the guy. Did he get any prison time? Was it anything like that? And shout out to the family for making sure that they didn't give up on him, because that's the sort of case that could easily be seen as an accident. So shout out to the family for not giving up, and the journalist that found out the information, obviously. Sometimes with crime cases and murder cases, I feel like the media can be a bit of a nuisance because they let out some information that the police and stuff don't want to be let out, but sometimes they're not, and they're actually good, and they can solve cases just like these two that we've read so far. So this is the next one, and it says, journalist spends 31 years on one case. Larry Welborn spent 31 years reporting on the unsolved murder of Linda Cummings. In 1974, Linda Cummings was found hanged naked in her apartment, and despite conflicting information and reports of a suspicious building manager, police ruled her death a suicide. 6 months later, the building manager was convicted of murdering another tenant in the same building, and despite this evidence, her cause of death was never re-examined. Over the course of the next 3 decades, Welborn conducted more than 60 interviews and finally published the 8-part series detailing his life's work in 2005. In the end, the building manager was arrested and charged in relation to her death. So, what the hell was just some random ass building manager walking around fucking killing tenants? And I live in an apartment building right now, so now I'm a little bit scared. But how can he be a suspect in someone's murder and then he gets convicted of another murder and then they still don't even re-examine her body and look into it? That is just confusing to me. I don't understand why you wouldn't do that, especially the way that she was killed. That is so sad. Like, why did he do that? I'm glad that she eventually got the justice that she deserved, but I do just think it's so weird that the police did not try and look into him again and reinvestigate it again when he had literally just been convicted of another murder of someone living in the exact same building. Like, that is a red flag. Don't know how they didn't see it. Don't know if they just didn't want to look into it, but yeah. Okay, this is the last one that I'm gonna do. But like I said, if you want to look in the source in the description, there's so many on there, so you can go and read it for yourself. This one is called Killer Calls Journalist to Confess Crime. In 1982, Carrie Ann Japek disappeared whilst walking home from school. She was listed as a missing person for 17 months, until a contractor found her remains buried under a neighbouring home. Multiple people were questioned, but the police never came up with concrete evidence against any of their suspects. 33 years later, 50-year-old Jose Ferreira called Chris Gregg at WISN 12 News in Milwaukee to confess to the murder of the 13-year-old girl. According to Ferreira, Japek was partying with him and some friends when she either fell or he pushed her down a flight of stairs. Japek hit her head, breaking her neck. Ferreira believed the girl to only be unconscious, so he had sex with her before realizing that she was dead and burying her in a thin sheet of plastic. According to Ferreira, Japek's last words were, "I don't know if this is a good idea." There are some sick ass men in this world. How are you going to be like, oh yeah, she was partying with us? She's 13. She was walking home from school and she's 13 and she was partying with you. If you're going to confess to something, literally just tell the fucking truth. Like, what is the point in confessing to something and just not telling the truth? Like, it just makes no sense to me. And you telling this story is not going to make it any better. Oh, I don't know if she fell or if I pushed her. Shut up. You're a murderer and a rapist and necrophiliac. weirdo. Absolute weirdo. I wouldn't say that the journalist solved this one, because obviously if he hadn't have rang up the radio station to report himself or confess himself, then this journalist would never have found out. It's not like they spent years and years researching or looking at clues or anything like that. Like, it was just someone in an office on a day where the guy rang up, and so it was solved. So that's the only one I would say maybe the journalist didn't solve, but regardless, I'm glad that it was eventually solved, obviously. But yeah, that is the end of today's video. I hope you liked it. If you did, please remember to smash a massive thumbs up. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, I will see you all soon. Peace.